So the Buddha's first teachings are really conceptualized as this fundamental set of ideas called the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so they're sequential, they all work together, and they allow us to see into what is really the central focus of how Buddhism theorizes and conceptualizes uh, the very nature of existence, of individual humans' existence, but also the whole universe of what are we doing, why do some things not work, and what can we do to get on track to have a more enlightened and also fulfilling life. Okay, so according to the Buddha, that the first noble truth is that all of life is suffering. Okay, so that might not sound really fun or really noble, but what the Buddha wants to say is the very nature of existence, the very fact of having a corporeal existence, of being in a body, that's suffering. That and then the cause of suffering is desire. I think these two are really helpful to begin to think about, that you need the second one to think about what does that first one mean. So if all of life is suffering, right, this is to say, even if I own a house, stuff breaks all the time, right? I got to replace the gutters. I got to mow the lawn. Maybe my lawnmower breaks. I have heartache all the time in my relationships, that I want to have good relationships with my friends, with my family, all these kinds of things. But so often we feel alienated, alone, like radically alone, lonely, just a sense of we don't know why um, things are happening in our personal lives, but also around us, right? Think even of this very moment, of the pandemic, of wildfires, climate change, uh, insufficient food in certain areas of the world or for certain populations, right? That in all of life, even something good or something that might appear good could wind up being a source of suffering, right? So the cause of suffering is desire. So think about it this way, right? That if you decide that you really want a new shirt, what are you going to do after you buy a new shirt? Well, you got to get the pants to go with it. You got to get the shoes to go with it, right? Maybe you got to get a bag, a hat, new eyeshadow, whatever. Right? That as you get things, that never satisfies you, that desire never fulfills you. It only creates more desire, right? It only perpetuates a sense that you're not fulfilled, according to the Buddha. So all of life is suffering, and then the cause of suffering is that kind of desire, that unending, unquenched wish for more love from the people you know, maybe your partner or partners, um, more connections, or a greater lasting sense of what goes well, right? That, when you really want to achieve something, you spend 4 years in college, right? And then you kind of get to the end of that, and it's just like over, right? That even graduation ceremony doesn't quite mean what you hoped it would mean. And you're not just like done or set for the rest of your life. Now you have to go out and get a job or go to graduate school or figure out what you're going to do, try to decide to have a family, all those kinds of things, right? That all of those are actually forms of desire that are in this ongoing cycle. So the Buddha teaches this is really the place to intervene, that achieving enlightenment really has nothing to do with all of those caste duties, things like that. It does sound more like, or and really it is influential on the Hindu idea of action without attachment that we saw in the Bhagavad Gita. That's something that really develops in this whole time period where Buddhists and Hindus are looking at each other and thinking about that kind of concept. And so here, the third noble truth is that to end desire, you have to end suffering. Okay, so it begins to feel circular, right? The cause of suffering is desire. How do I end desire? I end suffering. Shoot, right? That this is a problem. But the Buddha says, no, I have a path to guide you. And that is the Eightfold Path. Okay, so I'm not going to test you to memorize all of these different parts of the Eightfold Path, but I want us just to kind of think more broadly about what they are. They're about right understanding and thought, right? These kind of the cognitive aspects that we've talked about with religion. Right speech, action, livelihood, these then are being social, communal, institutional, ethical, right? That there we see all different kinds of aspects of religion, and right effort. And then especially for Buddhism, there's an emphasis on right mindfulness and right meditation. So Buddhist forms of meditation, or even what it means to be mindful, contrasts to Hinduism, that in Hinduism, it's often about removing oneself from the world. But Buddhism focuses on consciousness, on trying to achieve a kind of pure and total consciousness of everything. That I should be aware of what's happening with me, my internal processes, my external movements, these kinds of things. This is actually a part of mindfulness, and that my consciousness allows me to be aware of all those around me, that this is really the goal. And all of these things, it's not sequential. They all work together. Okay, so what the Buddha is saying is that these are kind of like 8 different balls that we have to juggle skillfully, to use some kind of metaphor, not really literally, right? But that we have to get all of this going, that we can't really have one without the other. When we work on one, it influences others, right? That would be the goal of meditation as a practice, for example, to work on ourselves, to work on all of these other things, that this is what Buddhists would be trying to do. And so ultimately, these then form the kind of path toward really understanding the 3 characteristics of existence. Okay, so these are the 3 ways of thinking, or 3 kind of areas of thinking that ground Buddhism. Okay, so suffering. When you think about suffering, think about the 4 noble truths. Okay, think about the way that Buddhism emphasizes you might be suffering and you don't even know it, or if you're suffering, you don't know why, and that's where Buddhism intervenes. The second characteristic of existence is impermanence. Okay, so for Buddhism, one way of thinking about impermanence is about the self. That this third characteristic is anatman, or in Sanskrit, and then I think in Pali it's anatta. Okay, so no self, atman, right? So we know the word atman from Hinduism. We know it refers to, in Hinduism, the true self or the soul. Okay, so let's see if we can get a pen color going here. That we do not have a permanent, true soul, according to Buddhism. Okay, so it's not theistic. There's no Brahman and there's also no Atman. Those are illusions, and those are part of why, from the perspective of the Buddha and then others who go over to convert to Buddhism and practice Buddhism, or are born into it as generations go on, that the soul, the idea of a soul is really misleading and not helpful. And so it's never, there's nothing kind of um clothed by my body that is somehow my core soul. Okay, so if we think about karma, with Hinduism, right, that in karma you would have your Atman here in the middle, and then you would have these different little aspects of karma that are trapping you, which is a shared concept with Buddhism, right? And so these five kind of concentrations, or as they're called in Buddhism, skandhas, they are the reason that karma is trapping your soul, because they're all interacting with each other, right? That they're keeping your soul locked in the middle, right? So um, with Hinduism, the goal is to unlock the Atman from being trapped. But Buddhism really says, no, that's kind of an unnecessary step, actually, even to think that there's an Atman. That the reason karma traps us is that karma traps these skandhas and locks them together. Okay, so in Buddhism, karma is keeping all of this stuff interacting. It's why I appear to have a body, right? That I have this physical body, but then I also have all of these other, right? That these, and these are really summary ways of talking about aspects of karma, or points where karma kind of locks a person into, right, or in each life an appearance of a different person or being. And so the ultimate goal then for Buddhism is simply to unlock all of these skandhas, right? That to try to erase all those connections. And then Buddhism says that's it. That nirvana is simply to untangle the web of karma. And so once the web of karma is untangled, then a person achieves samsara, right? Because the trap is karma itself. There's no need to think that karma is trapping something else in the way that Hinduism does, right? That Hinduism would say the goal is to get rid of these so that Atman here can connect with Brahman, right? But that's not the goal in Hinduism. That I mean, I'm sorry. That this is Hinduism, right? And this is Buddhism, and that this having unlocked all of the skandhas is nirvana. In Hinduism, having unlocked sort of all that karma that allows Brahman here to expand and connect with the whole universe, or Brahman, that's called moksha, right? And both nirvana and moksha, basically, they're really close synonyms. They're about getting out of the cycle of reincarnation, the cycle of that perpetual rebirth of samsara. Okay, so samsara is a shared concept in Hinduism and Buddhism, and samsara says that if you still have karma, you are going to be born and reborn, and it is that cycle of rebirth that is suffering, right? So both traditions are really thinking about what's being reborn, what's being reproduced, right? And that basically for Buddhism, these skandhas are what trap, basically, this is like the trapped karma complex, okay, that we could call the sort of interlocking of this a karma, slow to write like this, complex. And that is what is released into nirvana, right? Or that essentially, I'm sorry, that when that is released, that there is nirvana, okay? Because here it's about the Atman achieving with union with the universe, but here no such critter, right? That there's nothing underneath it all. And so nirvana or full enlightenment is simply to cease to exist. That there's nothing underneath this karma complex according to Buddhism, and there's nowhere that it goes, right? The whole point is to unlock it and to basically deconstruct and break apart that karma complex. And once it's broken apart, it's just not there anymore. So a really common story or metaphor that's used is to think of striking a match, right? Now you have fire on your match, but then you blow out the match, and where does the fire go? The fire doesn't go anywhere, right? It's a trick question to imagine that the fire goes somewhere, right? If you told your friend, well, I blew it out and it's just gone and appeared elsewhere, your friend would say, I think you need to think that one through again. You're crazy. That's how this kind of Buddhist teaching thinks, or works, is to say the whole goal is to blow the fire out, to extinguish it, to break up, to have no more karma, that then simply unlocks your five skandhas and they go away, right? And so the skandhas are what is reproduced in reincarnation. It's not a trapped soul. There's no soul. It's just this kind of web of karma that is tied together due to the amount of karma, right? Due to its kind of all being intertwined, that moves from lifetime to lifetime. And ideally, the ultimate goal is nirvana, to get out of that cycle of rebirth.